Welcome, everyone. We are live, and it's Wednesday. See, we all know this story of the tortoise and the hare. Of course we do. But let's look at it. Let's peel the layers back to comprehend what is happening, and we're going to see the law in there. We all know that they say the tortoise is arrogant, He's like, I'm not the tortoise, the hare, sorry. The hare is running around. He's talking about, oh, I'm here, I'm there. I can do this, I can do that, I'm fast, blah, blah, blah. And he's just, running around. The tortoise, he just knew he always finished. That's what he knew. He always finished. Look at what happens when we compare ourselves. When you compare yourself, you blind yourself. Because the tortoise did not compare himself to the hare. He knew himself, and he knew that he always finished. He knew that what he started, he ended. This is all he knew. The hare, on the other hand, his comparison was, well, I'm faster than you. One of my favorite lines from one of my movies is, you cannot defeat me. That's one of my favorite lines because it's funny. But he says, in comparison to me, you are slow, sir. You see, when we compare ourselves, look at the principle of correspondence, as within, so without. When you compare yourself, there's nothing wrong with having confidence. But when you compare yourself, right? Look at how he compared himself, and you will see his mental attitude. You will see that as within, so without. How did he compare himself? Well, he said, well, look at me. I'm this champion. I'm this. And who are you? Who are you? The tortoise was not concerned with who the hare is. He's not concerned with who the hare is or the hare's opinion. See, there's no quote unquote good or bad to the story. It is just a matter of, where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself in the story? Where do you see yourself in the story? So they're getting ready for the race. And the hare says, I'll give you a head start. I'm going to just lounge over here. See what happens with that comparison? He got, because we love comfort, do we not? There's nothing wrong with comfort. Comfort is the end game, always. He got to the point where he sat under that tree and he just sat there thinking about the tortoise and how slow the tortoise was. And he's busy comparing himself. He's busy comparing himself. See what happens when we compare ourselves? We stop doing what we are good at. We stop doing it because the mind likes one thing to focus on. It functions best from a singular task, not multitasking. So he's sitting there and he's telling himself, that tortoise, who does he think he is? Trying to tell me that he can come out here and race me. He can't race me. I'm the fastest son of a gun in these here parts. Do you see where he was focused on? He was not focused on action. He was focused. He was polarized with comparison. Every time you stop, because you have this, you will stop. And you will end up moving slower than the tortoise when you compare yourself to someone else. Because remember the principle of vibration, everything moves, nothing stands still. So even though he's sleeping under the tree, he's chillaxing, he lulled himself into slumber. He told himself a story. And we all love a good story. He lay under that tree and he told himself a story. Cause and effect kicked in. Because he's telling himself a story, the natural thing to do is to be soothed by the story that you tell yourself. And he's telling himself this story. Yeah, I know I'm awesome, right? Compared to him, look at that slowpoke. I'll get up and he'll still be back here. Meanwhile, the tortoise says, whew, it's a good day. I'm sure glad it's not too hot. Let me just take my time. Oh, look at all these pretty things. Well, let me take my time, though. I gotta keep going. I know it's pretty. I know that bird song is real sweet, but I gotta finish. I gotta finish. There'll be plenty of time for me to stop and smell the roses and see all these pretty things. Tweet, 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 tweet. There'll be plenty of time for me to stop and do that. Let me stay focused. You see, before the tortoise started the race, he knew who he was and he knew who the hare was. But he only allowed himself to focus on one thing. And the one thing that he allowed himself to focus on was the end. He didn't panic, he didn't fret, he didn't complain about how slow he was. He just said, I'm going to get there. I will stay focused because I know what that finish line looks like. I will get there. And he did not allow himself to become pulled in any direction other than straight forward. That's all he did. That's the principles right there. You know who you are, and you act according to what you know, and you remain focused on the desired outcome for the person you say you want to become. And there are many things around us. There's many, I don't even like using the word temptation, but you get the point. There are many things that would entice or lure us somewhere else so that you don't see the end game anymore. You're too busy. Right? He's outdoors. He's in the woods. They're gonna be flowers and there'll be little itty bitty bunnies, and birds singing in the trees. There's lots to see. There's lots to experience. But he said, I have a task to complete. What task did he set for himself? He said, I got a race to run. And normally when we think of races, we only think of the sprints. But there's distance races too, You've got to pace yourself for those things. You got to pace yourself. So that's all this itty-bitty tortoise did. And because it's a tortoise, he was probably old too. And he did not count that against himself. He just said, I have to focus on the end. And no matter what came up, that is all he did. He focused on the end result, which was to complete the task that he had set out for himself. If you look at the hare did not necessarily stick to the task at hand. He got caught up partway through and gave himself a completely different task that he thought was worthy. which was comparison. So he had a task too, but it was not the task that was at hand. The task was to finish the race. That was a task. And he was so busy comparing himself until I don't know what snapped him out of his reverie. I don't know. But as you'll know from the story, something always snaps us out of our reverie. Where we go, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing? I gotta finish. Right there. And so something snapped the hare out of his reverie of sleeping under the tree. He said, oh my God, what's happening? He was disoriented. What's happening? And he looked in the distance and he saw the tortoise way ahead of him. He goes, what? I can't let you beat me. I got a reputation to uphold. I cannot let you beat me. But alas, it was a little too late. The tortoise finished the race. Now, if you were a betting man, most people would have bet on the hare. There's 3 people in this story: the observer and the 2 participants. So we realize we can take on 3 different roles here at any given time simultaneously. You who are observing, you doing, right? Observation. Seems like 2, but there's 2 different attitudes. Which attitude are you functioning from? Comparison, knowing, or the bystander? Which one? As the bystander, you notice the bystander is looking on without judgment. He's just watching the race. The bystander is looking on without judgment, just watching the race. The tortoise is focused on the outcome. The hare is focused on comparison. And each 3 of those has its own lesson to learn non-judgment. Because when you don't judge, you see all aspects. You see how the tortoise behaves, you see how the hare behaves. That's what you're doing when you're just observing. You're just watching the participants. But they're watching themselves also. The tortoise is watching himself because he's focused and he's just going towards that finish line. So he's watching himself. He's taking his time. He couldn't rush if he wanted to. So that tells us there's no need to rush. Whether you rush or you take your time, you will still finish. This is the lesson here too. Whether you rush or you take your time, you're going to finish. But it is the how one finishes, the effect of the finish. And you know that hare beat himself up. You know he did. Talking about, oh my God, you're the slowest guy here. You beat me. They're going to laugh at me forever. See what he did to himself? But who inflicted that? Certainly not the tortoise. Certainly not the observer. Yes, a little bit. It was the hare. He inflicted it upon himself because he lost sight. But here's the good news. Even though the hare lost sight at the beginning, did he not get it back? Of course he did. He got his vision back because he snapped out of the reverie. He snapped out of his slumber underneath the tree and he says, I got a race to finish. Now, the judgment would be he got there too late. But the non-judgmental observer would tell you that he did finish. He did finish. So, whatever that situation you are experiencing in your life, that race that you're running, are you singularly focused, or are you comparing yourself? Because if you look at it, they're both running the race. Are you looking at your neighbor and saying, "Well, they got more than me"? Oh, they're better than me. They're more qualified. Hmm. Meanwhile, your neighbor is just simply focused on, "I got a job to do." Not that your neighbor doesn't care about you. It's just that they're focused. So there are many pieces to this story that you can learn from. No matter what your life was or presently is, this story tells you how it will turn out. It tells you you're always going to finish, you're always going to be successful. Well, he crossed the finish line. Was that not the objective? To cross the finish line? Okay. That's what it is. He wanted to cross the finish line, and he did. Whether you race across or you step by step across, you're going to cross that finish line. So the lesson there is know that you will finish. You have to know that you will finish. It is that knowing that will keep you focused. Well, that's what the tortoise did. The tortoise knew himself. The tortoise knew, look, I know I'm slow, but I'm steady. Now, I'm slow and steady, and I'll cross the finish line. He had a confidence. They both had confidence. But one's confidence got clouded because he compared. Comparison is a judge. Oh, comparison is a judgment. So your other lesson there is don't compare yourself to someone else. Everybody has their own way of doing something. The hare, his way is pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter, do it fast. The tortoise, his way is step by step. That's what they both do. So they both know they're going to get there. So where's your confidence this morning? The confidence comes from knowing one's self. And if you compare yourself to the other person, you will blind your own eyes. But here's the other part of that. Here's the good news. You'll snap out of comparison because you'll see how not helpful it is. And you'll stop doing it because you will recognize that you only slow yourself down when you compare yourself to another. Now, if the hare had looked at the tortoise and said, "Oh, I could use some of that persistence," the race might have ended different. But he looked at the tortoise's persistence and said, "You're just slow." See what happens when you compare yourself to somebody else? You miss. You miss you. You miss you. So this story is simply telling us where the principles are. Mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. This was mental. The hare is out here talking to himself like, "Oh, I'm the shiznit, man. I'm the top dog in this." This is what he's telling himself. But he's not telling himself that in the fact that he is what he is. He's telling himself that in comparison to the tortoise, I am better. So he showed you his what? Insecurity. So he ran that race from a place of insecurity. How so? Because he compared himself. He said, I'm faster than you. You can't beat me. You're a tortoise. Tortoise tortoises are known for being slow. Some would call it arrogance. Nah, it's an insecurity. But you see, that big old tortoise lumbering down the track, talking about, oh, look, there's the finish line. Let me keep going. So today, when you look or you hear that story, when you see, here's the thing about stories. When you can see yourself in the story, you will begin to contemplate that story. Thus, you will learn. But when you don't see yourself in the story and it's just a story to you, we miss certain things. One, you don't have to rush, you'll get there. Two, everybody has their own way of getting to the finish line. Three, comparison will slow you down. Because you're blind and you're deaf. You can't see where you're going and you can't hear what's around you. That's what comparison will do. But then there's the art of learning to observe oneself without judgment. So that when you see what is happening, hear what is happening, you can look and say, I know what choice I would like to make. I see what I want to become. And then what do? You condition yourself to become what you saw or you read or you heard from the story. So the next time you hear, be like Jesus. Next time you hear that, well, read one of the stories. What was he like? Well, then adopt that mentality. And when you adopt or contemplate the mentality of something, you become it. It is always going to be the mentality, which is the first principle. Mentalism. The all is mind. It tells you what and who. The all. You can't call it anything else. It encompasses everything. So it can only be all. It's not missing any parts. It is all. But what is all? Mind. Mind is not brain. Mind is the awareness of oneself, your own existence. The all is aware. So then it leads you into correspondence. What the all is aware of, it does. It is what it is aware of. I think that's Friday. Let There Be Light is Friday. Oh, yes. That's going to be a fun one. I think it's Friday, is it? I think that's what day it is for that one, for that morning inspiration. Let there be light. But I digress. So when you look and you hear this story and you begin to contemplate means to think about something. And to just think, to truly think about it. The nuances of it. Right? When you begin to contemplate each character, their mental attitudes from the story, now you begin to ask yourself, which mental attitude would I like to develop within myself? Focus. Now, you say focus, some would say, yeah, but the way my ADHD is, Hmm. Mm. When we hear that word focus, sometimes we lean towards ADD, ADHD. And I am here to say, trade that in for something else. It is just all it is an untrained mind. The tortoise teaches you how to have a trained mind. It teaches you that there will be distractions. Squirrel, right? There will be distractions. But what will you do in the face of the distraction? We already know that they are distractions. They're not a surprise. We know they're there. So the choice then would be, remain focused. That's the choice that you make. And the more you practice focusing, the better you become at focusing because you're learning a skill. You think we all grew up knowing how to focus? We learned it. So the tortoise is telling you you can learn to focus. Focus on what? The end result of the choice that you just made, the effect. And now you become the cause, obviously. You become the cause of bringing that thing about because you remained singularly focused. So you know that if you focus, you'll finish. Not with force either. Well, he didn't have any force when he was running. He's a tortoise. He had to take it easy. He had to take it easy, nice and relaxed as he focused. Right? But we also can learn from the hare, too. Stay focused. Don't compare yourself to somebody else because comparison will lull you into a stupor. It will lull you into a sleep because you keep telling yourself the same story. That is what happens. That's the nature of a story. The nature of a story is to soothe. Yes, you learn from the story, but the nature of stories, what do we do with our kids? When you want them to rest, you tell them a story. If you want to inspire, you tell a story. The story will change depending upon what it is required to do. But we know that his story, the way he told himself, put him into a slumber because he fell asleep. He became complacent. So don't be talking to yourself, well, they're better than me, or oh, I don't know how this thing's going to turn out. Well, I've been trying for so long. I just don't have the right connections. I don't know anybody. Next thing you know, you fall into this sleep that says, oh, just stay where you are then. What's the point of moving? Just stay where you are. And you see how slow you get. But the great news about this story is that he did snap out of it. He said, oh, what am I doing? Let me get focused. And he caught his focus back and he crossed the finish line. The story says he was kind of disappointed because he lost. But there again, he compared himself. So that's why he registered a sense of loss, because he compared himself. Don't compare yourself to someone else, because each person has their own pace, their own race that you know nothing about. And I know Neville, and I love the way he says it. He says, if you have to look at somebody, look at their mentality. Well, how do you see their mentality? You see their mentality based upon what they've done. The tortoise's mentality was focused. He was sure of himself. Well, then adopt that mentality. Practice those things. And you will become steady and sure of yourself like the tortoise. But at no point do we forget the observer. Always remember you are observing yourself because you are both tortoise and hare. Some days you're focused, some days you're not. You are both of those things. Well, you're all three. There's only one story from three different aspects, just one story. The observer who watches without judgment. Why without judgment? So you can learn. You've got to be open to learn, right? I trust that today you will recognize that you're all three of those characters in the story. Contemplate it. Spend some time with it today. And then begin to ask yourself, who do I want to become? Because you're looking at it now and you're looking at your life and you've got something going on in your life. You don't want that in there anymore. You want to change. To change the external, you must change the internal first. And to change the internal, you examine the mental attitude, the mental mood, the mentality, the mindset. You observe that. Just observe it. What is it causing you to do? How is it causing you to behave? Just observe it. And how do you observe? Oh, snap. Oh, I see what that makes me do. Oh, I'm doing that. And then you recognize what you're doing without judgment. Well, then you ask yourself, well, what would I be doing if I didn't have that attitude? How would I be behaving? What other attitude can I have? What other attitude can I practice? And you begin to see, because each mental attitude has behaviors attached to it. Have you ever said to somebody, you have a bad attitude? How do you know they have a bad attitude? But the way they behave. How do you know they have a good attitude? By the way they behave. So the attitude may be invisible, which is masculine. It is invisible. But then when it takes on the form of a behavior, it is feminine. Form is feminine. So you ask yourself, what mental attitude would I like to embody? What mental attitude do I want to give form to? A mental attitude of confidence. What does that look like? Good posture. I don't have to slouch. I don't have to have downcast eyes. They look everybody in their eyes. I make eye contact. I got a firm handshake. Those are the embodiment of confidence. How do you know? Well, if I ask you to describe a confident person that you know, what are you going to describe? You're going to describe their behavior, which would then show you their mental attitude so that you can say, oh, that's confidence. Oh, that's insecurity. You name it, it has behaviors. So when you recognize what your mental attitude is, you're going to see the corresponding behavior. And when you see the corresponding behavior, you say, Angela, I don't like that behavior, eh? Well, then what behavior would you like to do? Then that is the mental attitude. Those two things will go together. And now you will be what the the Heart Math Institute would tell you. You are what? You're coherent. your heart-brain coherent. Heart meaning what? Your inner mental attitude, your awareness of what you are and your behavior are now the same, and you are aware that they are both the same thing. You are always in alignment. You're never out of alignment. Well, how so? Because the mental attitude and the behavior are always going to match. They're always going to match. So you can't not be in alignment. When you catch yourself saying you're out of alignment, you know what you're actually saying? You're saying, I want a particular mental attitude, and I'm seeing this behavior, and it's not matching. It's not the behavior I want. That's what you're noticing, that's not the behavior you want. So what's the behavior that you want? Then the mental attitude will be there to correspond. So if your behavior is not what you want it to be, here it is, that key word, want. If your behavior is not what you want it to be, that's telling you that your mental attitude is not where it should be. Because we only ever recreate what is already on the inside. We just project it outward. You plant corn, you reap corn. So the mental attitude and the behavior will always match. But who you want to become, you have to change the mental attitude to bring about that matching or corresponding behavior. So this is where you stop and you ask yourself these questions. You don't just say, I want to be rich. It's just a word. What is the corresponding behavior? Because the corresponding behavior will show you the mentality, the mental attitude, the mindset of rich. Oh, I want to be peaceful. I want to have peace of mind. What is that behavior? What does that look like to have peace of mind? When you see somebody who's peaceful, we usually think of monks. Hmm, they're peaceful. They don't get bothered by anything. So what's that mental attitude? That mental attitude would have to be stillness on the inside, a quietness, not hurried, taking your time. So that's the behavior. It's nice and slow, steady breathing. As within, so without. So I trust that it makes sense for you to know that you are the observer. Well, you're always looking. When you're in the mirror, who are you looking at? You're looking at yourself. Who's looking at themselves? I am. So you are observing yourself at all times. Remember that. And when you observe yourself, you will see where you need to change. Not where your mother wants you to change, not where your daddy wants you to change, not where your teacher, preacher, boss wants you to change. When you look at your life and you observe it and you say, I would like to be ... Then you begin to ask yourself, well, what kind of behavior does that person do? And you begin to do those behaviors. You begin to rehearse those behaviors. And what are you bringing about? The mental attitude that is accompanying them. Every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. And the reason why I'm telling you these things is because we all want to change our lives. We do. We want what we want, but in order to get what you want, you have to become it. You have to become the seed of it. And what is the seed? The mental attitude. Your mind set. Simple as that. And so what do we practice doing? Changing our mindset. And how do you know that you've got the right mindset? You will see the corresponding behavior. Well, how else would you know if you're passing the test or not that you put forth for yourself? Through observation. So practice the art of observation, and you will learn the art of mental transmutation. You will have the ability to look at your attitude and change it at will. Not be manipulated into change, but to change at will of your own volition. That is your superpower. You can become any person you want. The mental attitude is what will shape that person. So I trust today, my beautiful friends, that you will learn from the tortoise, the hare, and the observer. Because we are all three at the same time. See, not three as in different, just three as in mindsets. One person experiencing different mindsets. There is only one. This is where oneness comes in. Wholeness, because there is only wholeness. You're not fractured. You're not broken. You're just experiencing a mindset that has corresponding external actions. So this is why the inner child is the same as you. The inner child is a mental aspect. But you know what? That is for another day. Because we could, as the young people would say, we could unpack that. Who's with us this morning? Because I know it's early and YouTube is telling me 43 minutes, Angela. Chatterbox. Melly Mel is in the house. K Frame is in the house. I wonder if the better man is there too. What about Mr. Stafford Jr.? I see you in these YouTube and Facebook streets. Hello. You know it is always good to see you. Oh, look, Twitter is for the replay gang. It always is for the replay gang. Ain't got no beef with Twitter. Who's on fan base with us this morning? I gotta scroll. Oh, I have to scroll. Michael is in the house. Miss McQueen is in the house. Summer Rose was here. Big Mike is in the house. KZ, my sweet. And 410 sweetheart. Well, hello, darling. Welcome to the space. I don't think I've said your name before, so you must be new to us. Welcome. Ray Ray is in the house. Ray Ray, I've been tapping on that hand. I think the app is apping, son. But we're getting dark mode sometime in Q2. I digress. It is all good. Listen, go forth today and know, K-N-O-W. Knowledge, yes. Know that you are always observing yourself. And what are you observing every time? Your mental attitude. Be the one to influence your mental attitude. Of course. Well, only you know who you want to be. I don't know who you want to be. So how can I tell you who to be? All I can tell you is observe yourself and select the mental attitude that corresponds with who you want to be. And we, like the tortoise, will persist in that. We will stay focused on that practice of becoming. Why? Because you will stop becoming it because you've become it. You'll just do it now. You'll just do it. Don't make me LL Cool J you. Doing it and doing it and doing it well. That's what practice makes us do. Things well. You will master what you practice. And the best thing to master is self. Why? You thought there was somebody else for you to master? No, darling. Master the self. Because there is only the self. One self, many moods. Anyhow, don't let me prattle on. I do have to feed the chickens. Because he was up early this morning talking about, I hear you, mother. And I said, I hear you too, son. He's crowing. And lady, she's purring. They're so sweet. Chicken Chronicles. Mr. Custom, I see you. Anyhow, countdown initiated. Wait, Tim was here? I did not know Tim was in the house. What? I did not know that. I'm all out of love. I gotta replenish my stock. I gotta replenish my love. Anyhow. 4, 3, 2, 1. I love you, and you know I'll see you on the morrow. Right here, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, fan base. 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace out, y'all. You know I love you. Let me close. Twitter is closed. Did my mommy message me? Yes, she did. She said it rained yesterday, so she didn't go to the beach. Anywho, peace out, YouTube and Facebook. You know I'll catch up with you later. And listen, keep testing out the site. PositivelyAngela.com. Because you can send me chats and I get a notification. Now, I'm normally at work, so I don't reply right away. But I'm still trying to work things out because I'm learning how to use my site too. Because your girl is not tech savvy, but I'm learning. Okay, so you got to test out the site. PositivelyAngela.com. Okay. Yes. All right. I look forward to getting your notes and things, your emails and things, and your questions. I love questions. The law has the answers. You can't have a question without an answer. Why? Because every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. So a question must have an answer. Ow. Anywho, I'll wait to hear from you when you test out the site, positivelyangela.com. Ow. All right.